guys, this is Heather from healthyeatingstartshere.com. Today we're going to talk about a diet for constipation. Now, before you shy away or get scared off talking about poo, this is really important for your overall level of health. It's an indicator of how things are working. And having regular bowel movements, you're aiming for 2 to 3 per day, can help efficiently move the waste from the foods that you're eating out of your body. And those foods, if they're allowed to sit around, they're going to create toxins, and those toxins are what contribute to cancer. So you want those moving out as quickly as possible. Some things to look for in a healthy piece of poo is a light brown color, about 1 inch around. You want it to be solid but not hard and not too soft. You don't want to see any undigested food in there, except for corn or flax seeds, which never digest, so don't worry about that. That can actually be a good indicator of the transit time. So if you eat a bunch of corn and then time how long that takes before you see it in the toilet, that will tell you how efficiently things are moving through your bowels. So those are some things to look for. If you have poos that are too hard or too small, or just not very often, those are all indicators of constipation. So you don't have to wait until your poos have entirely disappeared before you can say, I'm constipated. If you're just having less poo than normal, that is still constipation. So some things that we can do to help alleviate constipation. There are some really easy things you can do with your diet. So number 1 is fiber. Probably always hear that. Add fiber to your diet, but there are 2 types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. You want to get a mix of about 50-50 for those 2. Soluble fiber is fiber that absorbs water and turns to like a gel. So those are things like flax seeds, psyllium husks, the pectin in apples, so that's mostly in the seeds but also in the actual apple. And those types of fiber are great, but if you get too much of them, they can actually cause a blockage because they're going to absorb so much water that they're going to turn into this sticky jelly mass. So don't get too much, and psyllium is the one that often gets emphasized perhaps a little bit too much with all of the fiber cereals and stuff like that. So don't get too much of that. And then you also want to make sure that you get some insoluble fiber, which does not absorb water, and that's what we talk about roughage. So lettuce, other green leafy vegetables, the skins of fruits and vegetables, and pretty much any raw fruit or vegetable is going to be a good source of insoluble fiber. You can also cook them if you have some sensitivity in your digestive system. It might not give the same volume of roughage passing through, but it softens it and makes it more easily digestible. So the next thing would be water. If you are dehydrated, your colon will be dehydrated, and your colon works by contracting muscles to move the food along. And if your colon is dehydrated, it's not going to be able to do that job. So you got to make sure that you have enough water, and this will help with a whole bunch of other health issues as well, not just your colon, but for constipation, that is one of the most important things to look at, is getting enough water. Now the next thing would be to look at the level of healthy fats in your diet. Now you don't want to go pounding back the oil, but if you're not eating any fat at all, your poo will actually get hard and it won't be able to move quite so easily. So get things like nuts, seeds, avocados. Those healthy whole food fats can really help soften up your stool and get it moving through the colon. So those are 3 things to look for in your diet: fiber, water, and healthy fats. If you're missing any of those, try that first. Then some other things that you can do for constipation are get some exercise. This can really help. Like I said, your colon works on muscle contractions, so having a healthy system overall will help the healthy muscles of your colon. And just the movement can help things start to move. So if you've ever noticed, if you go for a run in the morning, it can really get things moving. Sometimes not so fun if you're halfway through your run, but what happens is when your body wakes up from sleep, nothing's really moving very fast. So if you get moving, even if you get out for a walk, you can find that will really help. If you notice in old books or movies, they talk about a morning constitutional. That's going for a walk, and then it triggers you to have a bowel movement. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they meant, but that's how I read it. Okay, some other things to do are, so exercise and sitting on the toilet in the proper way can actually help facilitate movement. So in Asia, they do squat toilets, which they don't necessarily do because of a lack of technology. They know that it's healthy to sit in a squat position because it encourages the colon to move. So you can imitate that at home by putting a stool or a phone book by the toilet, put your feet up on there, and then give yourself time in the morning or whenever you want to, whenever you have time to sit around for a little while and wait. But giving it time to move is really important. You might not feel like you have to go, but if you sit there with your feet up for a little while, read a book, read a magazine, read the newspaper, you might find that things get moving, and there you go. Now, last resort would be to take some laxatives, some herbal laxatives or some laxative foods. And the reason that's a last resort is because it doesn't fix the underlying problem. And it really just triggers things on a short-term basis. And once you stop taking them, you're gonna go back to not being able to have bowel movements. So it can be helpful in a dire circumstance, but for the most part, try those other methods first. So some herbal laxatives would be things like Cascara sagrada, senna, or even prunes. Those are dried plums, and if you eat them whole, they have a lot of fiber in them, but they also have just a compound that helps get things moving. So even if you have prune juice, that will help. All right, so that's it for my spiel about poo. And I'm not really shy about talking about poo. I actually have a couple friends who we have fairly detailed discussions about poo. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you feel shy if you talk about poo, or do you try not to talk about it? And can you see it in the overall scheme of health is the most important thing. Even if you don't talk about it with other people, as long as you can see it yourself as an indicator of health and not be shy to notice things about your poo. That's important. So let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. healthyeatingstartshere.com.